Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Battle Through the Heavens Part 229 based on novel. So let's start. The many pairs of eyes around the mountain range emitted a swoosh sound as they caught the Chief of the Hall of Souls stepping forward. The ferocious name that the Chief of the Hall of Souls once obtained within the Central Plains had reached a stage where one trembled in fear from hearing it. Although he had gradually faded from one's sight because of his prolonged retreat, his fierce reputation had not disappeared even after a long period of time. If one wished to rank the top individuals within the Central Plains, the Chief of the Hall of Souls, Han Miesheng, would take the top seat. 2 draws in 3 battles. This has somewhat surprised this chief, but this will not be able to change the final result. The Chief of the Hall of Souls was 1,000 feet from Xiao Yan when he finally came to a slow stop. He lifted his head and looked at Xiao Yan. A faint smile appeared on his face. His aura was calm as he spoke. His expression did not change because of the current situation. Xiao Yan's exchanged a glance with the Chief of the Hall of Souls. A hidden flow surged and the temperature of the air seemed to have risen at this moment. We should leave room to retreat when doing anything. At times, we should not be overconfident when speaking. Hall Chief should take care of himself. Xiao Yang softly replied. Ha ha, the Hall of Souls does not leave anyone alive when doing things. This way of speaking is only for mediocre individuals. If one worries about all this when trying to achieve big things, one would be a little petty. The Chief of the Hall of Souls loudly laughed as he quipped. Everyone felt a little excited in their hearts after hearing this verbal sparring. This fight was the most important one today. One party was the Chief of the Hall of Souls, and from a certain point of view, Xiao Yan could be considered the leader of the Sky Mansion Alliance. The battle between the two of them determined the victor and the loser of this battle. The clan has criticized me because of you. Back then, I gave the order to dispatch people to the Jiomar Empire to capture Xiao Zhong. My thought was that we should eliminate everyone when making an attack, but this chief had undertaken a retreat to train when the order was issued. Some of my subordinates were a little lazy and only captured Xiao Zhong since I wasn't around. You managed to escape the many attempts to kill you after that first incident because they all underestimated you. Within a short decade or so, you have reached this level a step at a time. The eyes of the Chief of the Hall of Souls were somewhat complicated as he stared at Xiao Yang. This threat to the Han clan was someone that they could have eliminated long ago, but due to many unforeseen reasons, they had ended up allowing this threat to grow at a terrifying speed. Now, this threat had reached a level where he could fight on even ground with the Hall of Souls. If one were to toss aside this person's status as an enemy, the Chief of the Hall of Souls felt an admiration for this person in his heart. He had to admit that if it had been him, he would have found it difficult to overcome this strenuous journey and reach the peak of this continent. This chief has an undeniable responsibility in allowing you to grow to this extent. Hence, this time around, I hope to remove that responsibility. The Chief of the Hall of Souls smiled. His eyes roamed Xiao Yang, who had an impassive expression, as he slowly stated. I also hope to help end the blood feud of the members of the Xiao clan today. Xiao Yang's voice was soft, but everyone could hear the dense murderous intent contained within his words. He could not forget those many scattered incidents from back then even now. The Xiao clan had ended up breaking apart because of the Han clan. His father had been captured and members of the clan had been killed. In the end, they were forced to leave their home and flee to spots around the Jiomar Empire. At that time, he did not possess the strength to protect his clan. All he could do was set off with the burden of the blood feud. That journey had undertaken had honed his will. At the same time, his hatred for the Hall of Souls had grown. The Chief of the Hall of Souls faintly smiled upon hearing this reply. A dark black dope chi slowly surged from his body. He said, just attack. This chief also wishes to see just how strong you, who has experienced a lucky encounter within the demonic flame realm, has become. Bang! Before the Chief of the Hall of Souls could utter all that he wanted to say, a low sonic boom was swiftly picked up by his ear. Moreover, the space in front of him shook the moment the sonic boom sounded. A figure appeared in front of him in a ghost-like fashion. Both of his fingers were curled, and a pink fire seedling happily danced in an arc. The temperature of the world rose the moment the pink fire appeared. The attack had arrived extremely quick. Even the calm chief of the Hall of Souls had a stunned expression flash across his eyes. In the next instant, the dark black chi on the surface of his body had agglomerated like a conditional reflex. It swiftly turned into a black shield. Both of Xiao Yan's fingers did not pause. They pressed against the shield, melting it with the dancing pink flame in an instant. After which, his fingers were like lightning as they headed toward the Hall Chief's eyes. Humph! The Chief of the Hall of Souls let out a cold snort when faced with Xiao Yan's vicious strike. His body did not move. He did not act to defend against Xiao Yan's finger. Instead, he slammed his palm toward Xiao Yan's chest. He was clearly intent on exchanging his eyes for the other party's eyes. The Chief of the Hall of Souls has really schemed well. Xiao Yan laughed upon noticing the strike, but his hand did not halt. Instead, he lowered it and accurately pressed his fingers against the palm of the Chief of the Hall of Souls. A pink flame flashed and the dense black chi on the chief's palm quickly melted away. The Chief of the Hall of Souls frowned when he felt how overbearing the purifying demonic lotus flame was. His body trembled slightly and many after-images appeared. His body reappeared in the air above. His expression was a little dark and solemn as he glanced at his palm. There was a half-an-inch long mark there. No blood seeped out of the wound because the surrounding blood vessels had been incinerated by the heat radiating from the purifying demonic lotus flame. It is indeed worthy of being the purifying demonic lotus flame. The Chief of the Hall of Souls had been injured the moment the fight began. Although it was not serious, it still appeared quite ugly. The fight between the two seemed to be a close-quarters fight. Moreover, both parties were as fast as ghosts. Within a split second, they had clashed and separated. Other than a few sharp-eyed individuals, most people were a little dazzled by the clash. Their hearts involuntarily felt some yearning while feeling shocked. Xiao Yan lifted his head. He glanced at the Chief of the Hall of Souls, but he did not say anything. His hand seals began to change with lightning-like speed. After the hand seals had changed, a 10,000-foot-large spiritual illusory figure wrapped around the surface of his body. Yellow Spring Divine Anger. Xiao Yan did not dare to underestimate such an opponent. He immediately unleashed his extremely powerful Soul Sonic Wave attack the moment after his first strike. The enormous illusory figure widened its mouth, and a terrifying spiritual wave smashed toward the Chief of the Hall of Souls at a speed that exceeded the speed of light. Xiao Yan, other people might be afraid of your Yellow Spring Divine Anger, but this chief isn't afraid of it. The Chief of the Hall of Souls pulled back as black chi erupted from his body. The chi turned into an uncountable number of spiritual illusory figures in front of many stunned pairs of eyes. These illusory figures created a strange formation as they wrapped around him. Their faces were filled with devoted expressions as they knelt down. At the same time, their mouths emitted many spiritual sonic waves. 10,000 worshipping souls. Countless of spiritual sonic waves gathered in front of the Chief of the Hall of Souls before they transformed into a sharp arrow that shot out and violently collided with the yellow spiring divine anger spiritual assault. The two spiritual sonic waves collided, and in an instant, the mountain range hummed. Many experts paled because of this spiritual fluctuation. A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out, and they pulled back with shocked faces. Just the strength of the sonic wave made them completely vulnerable. The sonic waves clashed and spread through the sky. The illusory spirits surrounding the Chief of the Hall of Souls exploded one after another. Finally, all of them exploded until nothing remained. His body did not appear to suffer much damage since it had been protected. Xiao Yan ended up frowning upon seeing his attack not do much. It was the first time he had witnessed a spiritual wave attack that could match the Yellow Spring Divine Anger. This Chief of the Hall of Souls was indeed knowledgeable. Moreover, the whole Chief's soul was also at the perfect heavenly state equal to Xiao Yan's soul state. After this exchange, Xiao Yan had discovered that the strength of the Chief of the Hall of Souls had actually reached the intermediate level of the 5 of the Star Doshan class. In other words, his strength had improved during these 2 years. Although your spiritual strength is powerful, I'm afraid that it is nothing but whimsical thinking if you wish to use it to defeat this chief. The chief of the Hall of Souls randomly broke the final sonic wave attack before he spoke. Xiao Yan glanced at the Hall of Souls chief but did not reply. He opened his mouth and a pink flame was spat out. Following the appearance of this pink flame, the trees around the mountain emitted puffs and self-ignited in front of many startled eyes. After which, they turned into ashes as fierce flames raged. The chief of the Hall of Souls' eyes narrowed when he saw the pink flame float above Xiao Yan's head. His face finally revealed an extremely grave expression. If a frightening heavenly flame like this purifying demonic lotus flame were to invade his body, even he would immediately receive a serious injury. The heavenly flame ranked third on the heavenly flame ranking was not just a flame others could just talk about. This is my first time using the purifying demonic lotus flame to fight an opponent. Hopefully, you will not disappoint me. Xiao Yan lifted his head, looked at the grave-looking chief of the Hall of Souls, and spoke with a smile. Although the demonic flame is powerful, one only needs to look at who is controlling it. The chief of the Hall of Souls spoke in a faint voice. He observed Xiao Yan and the cluster of pink flames. The wisp of an extremely faint black flame suddenly flashed deep within his eyes. It clearly appeared extremely unusual. Moreover, the purifying demonic lotus flame might be powerful, but Xiao Yan narrowed his eyes. He was vaguely able to detect a strange fluctuation being emitted from within Little Yi's body. Inside this chief's body, there seems to be something present. Xiao Yan gave the chief of the Hall of Souls, who was floating in the sky above, a deep look. Both of his hands appeared like blooming lotuses as they danced and formed many after-images. Following these hand seals, the cluster of pink flames above his head emitted a swoosh sound as it shot into the sky. Finally, it rapidly wiggled in front of countless pairs of eyes. A frightening temperature was gradually emitted while the pink flame wiggled. This caused the entire world to feel like a steamer. The mountains of the fallen mountain range would occasionally combust, causing a dense smoke to rise into the sky. The do-chi of some weaker individuals showed signs of boiling. Moreover, some of those experiencing intense emotional fluctuations were startled to discover that their bodies were gradually becoming warmer. The purifying demonic lotus flame possessed the unusual ability to use one's emotions as a source to burn one's body. This discovery frightened many people into withdrawing. Only after they had exited the bounds of the mountain range did they feel the searing pain in their hearts weaken. All of their faces were filled with horror. It is indeed worthy of being the purifying demonic lotus flame by being this terrifying, the grand elders of some sects around the mountain revealed solemn and envious faces. If one were to fight someone who possessed this kind of heavenly flame, one would have to split one's attention on resisting the high temperature of the flame before the fight even started. This terrifying temperature could even easily incinerate do-chi. Xiao Yan is finally planning on using the purifying demonic lotus flame. Old man Hunmo watched this scene and frowned. Even he would find it a little troublesome to deal with the purifying demonic lotus flame. Although the chief of the Hall of Souls was a level higher than Xiao Yan, it was not impossible for him to lose if he was careless. This little fellow is really a person blessed with great luck. I once made an attempt to get this purifying demonic lotus flame back then, but I ended up returning in failure. Unexpectedly, he was able to subdue the flame with his strength. Han Qianmo sighed before he immediately laughed. However, even if this brat really uses the purifying demonic lotus flame, he will still not find it easy to defeat Han Miesheng. The chief of the Hall of Souls focused his eyes on the cluster of churning pink flames as he stood in the sky. His eyes filled with a grave expression. On top of this solemnness, there was also an unusual heat surging within them. The pink flame gradually formed a pink fireplate in front of countless pairs of eyes. The edges of the fireplate consisted of strange flame symbols. If one were to examine these symbols, one would be able to tell that these symbols were the 6 types of heavenly flames Xiao Yan had refined. In the middle of these 6 types of heavenly flame, which was the middle of the fireplate, crystal-like pink flame was swaying with the wind. Angry Buddha Reincarnation. Xiao Yan's eyes hardened after the fireplate formed. A low cry was suddenly emitted. The pink fire plate in the sky emitted waves of buzzing sounds after Xiao Yan's cry sounded. The fire plate then emitted a cracking sound as it slowly rotated. While it was rotating, the pink fire crystal positioned at the center of the fire plate emitted a puff sound as it suddenly shot out an arm-thick fire pillar. The pink flame was merely as thick as an arm, but it swelled with the wind the moment it rushed forward before growing hundreds of feet in size within the wind. The pink flame had just been formed when it shot toward a mountain below with terrifying speed. Upon contact, the mountain strangely vanished in front of countless pairs of eyes as though it had been made of ice. Only a 1,000-foot large pit was left behind. The large pit appeared bottomless. At a glance, one was unable to see an end to it. Go? Xiao Yan's hand seal changed. A finger suddenly pointed towards the chief of the Hall of Souls in the sky, and the fire plate swiftly rose. That pink fire pillar cut through the ground, forming a 10,000-foot wide deep gully in front of many stunned eyes. It appeared as though all the objects the fire beam touched seemed to have been turned into nothing. The fire beam moved at a speed that could only be described as lightning quick. An ordinary person was only able to detect a bright flashing light before that strange pink fire beam locked onto the chief of the Hall of Souls, who was just about to pull back. After being surrounded by the pink fire beam, the majestic Do-Chi around the chief of the Hall of Souls began to swiftly melt at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although Do-Chi continued to surge out of the chief of the Hall of Souls' body, it was not able to catch up to the speed at which Do-Chi was melting. The strength of the current angry Buddha reincarnation had become overwhelming with the strengthening of the newly formed flame. If an ordinary elite Do-Sheng was surrounded by this light ray, that ordinary expert would likely be able to endure for half a minute or so before their Do-Chi would completely melt. At that time, even one soul would be annihilated by the fire beam. The expressions of those experts in the sky changed when they saw the chief of the Hall of Souls Do-Chi rapidly disappear. Their eyes were a little horrified when they glanced back at the rotating fire plate in the sky. They could detect an extremely dense and dangerous aura emanating from the fire beam. The chief of the Hall of Souls will not be able to endure for long if this continues. Everyone looked at each other as this thought flashed across their hearts. Once the Do-Chi within the chief of the Hall of Souls was completely exhausted, he would be defeated. Reincarnation restrain. Xiao Yan looked at the chief of the Hall of Souls in the sky, who was forcefully enduring the fire beam. His eyes turned slightly cold as his hands once again formed different seals. Following the change of these seals, the reincarnation fire flame suddenly began to rotate in the reverse direction at a rapid speed. The 100-foot large fire beam suddenly began to rapidly shrink after the reincarnation fire plate began to rotate in the reverse direction. Within the blink of an eye, it had shrunk to dozens of feet in size, but it did not stop there. It continued to wildly shrink. Following this rapid shrinking of the fire beam, everyone could sense an extermination energy being gathered. This is bad. Old man Hun Mo's expression immediately changed after sensing this energy. Even his heart had begun to palpitate as the fire beam shrank to the size of a thumb. Reincarnation restrain, falling reincarnation. A cold glint suddenly surged within Xiao Yan's eyes after the fire beam became the size of a thumb. The beam locked onto the chief of the Hall of Souls' forehead as Xiao Yan suddenly cried out. The reincarnation fire plate in the sky trembled after this cry was made. It gradually collapsed as a red light flashed over the sky. That thumb-sized fire beam ruthlessly struck the chief of the Hall of Souls with a destructive force. Bang! A loud explosion reverberated across the sky. The frightening fire waves that were created by the beam caused some elite Do-Shengs to hurriedly pull back with different expressions. They were afraid to even risk the chance of coming into contact with it. It has struck. Yao Lao and the others revealed a slight joy upon seeing the beam land. Even the chief of the Hall of Souls would likely suffer after being struck by such a powerful attack. The ancestor of the Pill Tower also locked his eyes on the spot where the pink flame had exploded, but his brows were slightly knit. Has the victor been determined? Those eyes from all over the mountain looked to the sky. Some conversations appeared in waves. Xiao Yan's attack earlier was far too powerful. If nothing unexpected happened, it was not impossible for it to determine the victor. The Hall of Souls was completely silent. They had not expected the Chief of the Hall of Souls to not possess the ability to even retaliate in this fight. Han Qianmo inserted his hands into his sleeves. He merely laughed after hearing the conversations from others. Xiao Yan floated in the sky. A mouthful of extremely hot air was spat out of his mouth. His eyes had focused on the spot where the pink flame was scattering. Although he was quite confident in his attack, he sensed that the Chief of the Hall of Souls would not be so easily defeated for some unknown reason. A slight sound was suddenly emitted from the area where the pink flame was spreading. He is indeed not dead. Xiao Yan's expression was displeased upon hearing this slight sound. The caution in his heart rose. Soon after Xiao Yan's voiced his thoughts, a black figure vaguely took shape in the middle of the spreading pink flame. An extremely strange suction force suddenly swept out in all directions when it appeared. The pink flame, which had been spreading out, had been sucked back in. Finally, the pink flame charged into the body of the person slowly walking out of the flame in front of many eyes. These eyes were all filled with disbelief. He has actually absorbed the purifying demonic lotus flame into his body? Is he trying to commit suicide? The actions of the black figure immediately stirred an uproar. Clearly, everyone felt disbelief because of what he was doing. He is actually unhurt. Xiao Yan's eyes were a little stunned as they scanned the Chief of the Hall of Souls as he slowly walked out of the flame. Xiao Yan felt some disbelief. The taste of the purifying demonic lotus flame is indeed delicious. However, it is unfortunately not the essence flame. I really wish to taste the essence of the purifying demonic flame. The Chief of the Hall of Souls stood in the sky. He smacked his mouth and an unusual smile hung on his face. He looked at the frowning Xiao Yan. A strange black flame with an unusual devouring power was present within his eyes. Traces of it seeped out and the energy that surrounded him was continuously sucked into his body. After which, it was completely devoured by an unusual strength. Are you feeling confused? The Chief of the Hall of Souls softly laughed. His face was overflowing with a strange expression. You possess the purifying demonic lotus flame while this chief has a heavenly flame that is even stronger than it. The Chief of the Hall of Souls slowly extended his hand. A cluster of unusual black flames suddenly appeared. The black flames churned and vaguely formed a human face. Waves of a devouring power erupted from the mouth of that human face. Xiao Yan's eyes suddenly narrowed to the size of a pinhole when the black flame with a human face appeared. The second on the heavenly flame ranking. Nihility devouring flame. A great storm had formed within Xiao Yan's heart at this moment. The Nihility devouring flame was a heavenly flame that was ranked second on the heavenly flame ranking. It was ranked even higher than the purifying demonic lotus flame. The mystery surrounding this heavenly flame was even thicker than the purifying demonic lotus flame. At the very least, news of the purifying demonic lotus flame had slivered across the continent, but Xiao Yan had never heard of any news relating to this Nihility devouring flame until now. The Nihility devouring flame was ranked second on the heavenly flame ranking. This flame was born from nothing. There was no image to look for nor a form to grasp. From a certain point of view, the Nihility devouring flame could be considered a mysterious existence. The Nihility devouring flame was said to be able to devour anything. Only a small number of things in the world could resist its devouring ability, but this Nihility devouring flame only existed in legends. No one had ever heard about any signs of this thing. Hence, the shock within Xiao Yan's heart was relatively intense when he saw the Chief of the Hall of Souls actually summon this heavenly flame, which only existed in legends. Nihility devouring flame, how can this be possible? How can he possess the Nihility devouring flame? Yao Lao had also immediately recognized the unusual black flame. An extreme shock was visible on his face as he involuntarily cried out. Everyone by the side trembled violently upon hearing these words. Even the ancestor of the Pill Tower revealed an extremely grave expression. Some of the experts around felt some uncertainty after seeing the fallen mountain range, which had become completely silent. The Nihility devouring flame was far too mysterious. Only an extremely few individuals were able to recognize it. Hence, many people felt somewhat at a loss when they saw the black flame in the Chief of the Hall of Souls' hand. The cluster of black flames with a human face in the hands of the chief of the Hall of Souls seemed to have become a little stronger after swallowing the pink flame. Waves of excited cries were actually being emitted from it. Xiao Yan, it seems that it is extremely satisfied with your taste. This chief has seldom seen it reveal such excitement. The chief of the Hall of Souls faintly laughed upon seeing its reaction. Xiao Yan's eyes did not blink as he stared at the cluster of black flames. He suddenly knit his brows a moment later. Finally, he slowly shook his head and softly said, "This heavenly flame of yours is not the Nihility devouring flame." Many people were involuntarily startled after Xiao Yan's words sounded. Even Yao Lao was a little stunned. Other than the Nihility devouring flame, no other heavenly flame possessed a devouring power. Oh! The chief of the Hall of Souls merely lifted his brow upon hearing Xiao Yan's remarks. His hand slowly rubbed the human-faced black flames in his hand and asked, "If this flame of mine is not the Nihility devouring flame, why don't you tell me what it is?" Xiao Yan stared at the chief of the Hall of Souls' face and smiled. The shock within his heart also slowly drained. This Nihility devouring flame was indeed able to emit a unique devouring power, but Xiao Yan was in possession of 6 types of heavenly flames. Hardly anyone on the continent possessed a better understanding of the heavenly flames than him. Hence, he vaguely sensed something was not quite right after he cooled down. This feeling that something was wrong could not be pinpointed, but he became certain in his heart after hearing the chief's reply. The human-faced black flames in the hands of the chief of the Hall of Soul might have a relationship with the Nihility devouring flame, but Xiao Yan was certain that this thing was not the true Nihility devouring flame. This was a judgment that Xiao Yan could make because of his vast experience of playing with flames for over a decade. The devouring power that this flame possesses cannot be faked. It is indeed something that the Nihility devouring flame possesses. However, it seems to be a little weak. Could it be that this thing is a seed flame of the Nihility devouring flame? Xiao Yan's eyes stared at the chief of the Hall of Souls as he suddenly inquired. This so-called seed flame was a flame that was separate from the essence flame. A seed flame possessed some of the abilities of the essence flame, but it was a lot weaker. From a certain point of view, it could be considered an avatar of the heavenly flame. However, the ability to separate and form a seed flame was something that very few heavenly flames possessed. The old purifying demonic lotus flame might possess such an ability, but it had not separated itself because once one separated and formed a seed flame, one would be decreasing one's strength. That demonic flame did not like the feeling of his strength being separated. Xiao Yan's eyes were staring intently at the Hall Chief's face. He was clearly able to detect the chief's eyes narrowing when the words seed flame were mentioned. As expected? Xiao Yan coldly laughed in his heart upon seeing this slight change. If this person really possessed the true Nihility devouring flame, he would have already absorbed all the energy in the air by now. Why would he slowly devour it like he was doing at this moment? However, this chief possesses the seed flame of the Nihility devouring flame. This means that the Han clan likely owns the true Nihility devouring flame. Xiao Yan's heart was a little solemn. He had not expected to discover a hint of the foundation of the Han clan this time around. The Nihility devouring flame was something that merely existed in legends. Yet, it was actually in the hands of the Han clan. This was not good news to Xiao Yan. You are indeed worthy of being an expert at playing with fire. The chief of the Hall of Souls gently held the human-faced black flames in his hand as he laughed in a faint voice. He had quietly affirmed Xiao Yan's guess. The Nihility devouring flame was extremely important to the Han clan. Although he possessed a high status, it was impossible for him to bring out its true form. Forget about whether he had the ability to control the Nihility devouring flame. Even if he could, the clan would not allow anyone other than the clan head to bring it out of the Han realm. However, even if it is merely a seed flame, it is more than enough to finish you off. The chief of the Hall of Souls lifted his hand. The human face formed by the cluster of black flames widened its mouth and violently bit the chief's hand. Do Chi began to surge out of his body before being swallowed by those black flames. The chief of the Hall of Souls became a little pale after the Do Chi within his body was swallowed by the black flames, but the black flames were growing more powerful. In the end, it emitted a sharp howl from its mouth. Its originally head-sized body had become 1,000 feet tall, causing black flames to rage in the sky. Those present could sense the Do Chi within their bodies vaguely show signs of attempting to break free from their bodies. They hurriedly suppressed their Do Chi in order to avoid embarrassing themselves. The enormous human-faced black flames drifted through the sky. Its black hollow eyes stared at Xiao Yan. The faint sound of saliva being swallowed could be making the face of the black flames appear stranger. "Devouring flame, sir, kill him." The chief of the Hall of Souls was filled with respect as he commanded this flame. The way he addressed this cluster of flames was also different. The human-faced black flames let out a strange cry upon hearing this command. After which, the flames whistled and moved. They penetrated through space like a ghost and sealed the space around Xiao Yan. Threads of black fire lines spread. They appeared like a cage as they trapped Xiao Yan within. This sudden scene startled everyone. No one had expected this unusual cluster of black flames to be able to unleash its own attack. What a delicious taste! The black flames wiggled and the enormous human face once again appeared in front of Xiao Yan. It let out a sharp and strange laugh. "Obediently allow me to devour you." Bang! A frightening devouring power erupted from the surrounding space after the black flame's sharp laughter sounded. This strength caused Xiao Yan's expression to slightly alter. He was preparing to suppress the violent heavenly flame within his body when powerful pink flames suddenly surged out of his body in all directions without any warning. This sudden unexpected change startled Xiao Yan. He saw the pink flames quickly gather in front of him. They transformed into a palm-sized fire baby. This baby was Little Yi. "Little Yi, quick, come back." Xiao Yan's heart pounded upon seeing this baby appear. Little Yi was the essence of 6 merged heavenly flames. Xiao Yan would really end up jumping in panic if Little Yi was swallowed by the black flames. "Yewa." Little Yi merely shook his small head when he heard Xiao Yan's panic cry. That tender little face strangely contained some fury as it glared at the human face. The purifying demonic lotus flame and the Nihility devouring flame were respectively ranked 3rd and 2nd, but neither was more powerful or frightening than the other. Of course, this was because no one had truly seen a fight between these two types of heavenly flames. Hence, it was impossible to predict the results. Although EWA was a newly formed heavenly flame from the merger of 6 heavenly flames, his instincts had mostly been taken from the purifying demonic lotus flame. Hence, hearing these black flames, which were merely a seed from the main flame, act arrogantly, provoke him, causing a fury to rise from deep within his bones. EWA. In his fury, Little Yi's small body suddenly burst apart. A pink sea of flames suddenly spread across the sky. The black flame prison that the black flames had formed was forcefully shattered, and then the pink flame swept in the opposite direction and turned into an even larger fire prison. This prison had been formed to trap the cluster of black flames. The heavenly flame within Xiao Yan's body revealed its full strength under the control of Little Yi. Even when Xiao Yan personally used the flames, he would not be able to match Little Yi's control. After all, Little Yi could control the heavenly flame to a perfect and flawless extent because his actual form was the spirit of a flame. This unexpected change had startled the Nihility black flame. It hurriedly unleashed its devouring power. This time around, it was no longer so lucky. Under the personal control of Little Yi, every wisp of flame controlled its own thoughts. The results would be unpredictable if the Nihility devouring flame's actual form were to swallow Little Yi, but how could a mere flame seed act skilled in front of a true Grandmaster? EWA. Little Yi completely ignored the devouring of the Nihility black flame. The pink flame churned before transforming into a large baby that was similar in size to the huge face. After which, it firmly grabbed the large face in front of tons of pairs of stunned eyes. Little Yi appeared like he was actually planning to swallow this Nihility devouring flame's flame seed. This video will end here.